I don't think I could have picked a better day to do this review, but here we are, typical Britain. To my left, we've got my E Tron 50, and to my right, I've got an E Tron 55. But can you spot the difference between these two E Trons? The main difference between my E Tron and this E Tron, at least on the outside, is this back end. Now this one's called the Sportback. The reason it's called the Sportback is it's got this swoopy sort of coupe-esque rear end. It's a little bit sportier, a little bit sleeker. You sacrifice a little bit of practicality, maybe a little bit of headroom in the back, maybe a little bit of boot space, but ultimately it's really the same car underneath. But to most people, it looks better. I can't decide which one I prefer. There's a bit of me that prefers mine, there's a bit of me that prefers this. I can't really make up my mind. But what I have decided is that it does look fantastic. The rest of the E Tron looks pretty much exactly the same as the normal car. From the B pillar forward, it's virtually the same car. You've just got the same overall design language, same overall looks. In fact, that's one of the best things about the E Tron, is the way that it looks. As far as I'm concerned, the E Tron is probably the best looking car in Audi's lineup, certainly from an SUV point of view. I think it's better looking than the Q3, better looking than the Q5, better looking than the Q7, even the Q8. I think this is a nicer design. And I think it's because it's not fussy. It's quite an elegant design, at least for Audi. It's not too blingy, it's not too showy-offy. It's just a good, nice looking car. And for me, it's one of the best things about this. Whilst the outside of the E Tron might look pretty good, the inside is arguably even better. It's very much the same as every other E Tron. This particular car is quite a heavily spec'd car, so it's the S-line trim, so it's got these slightly sportier seats, and it's got a few extra details. It's got some accent lighting and a few bits and pieces, which actually I think are really cool. But overall, it's very much E Tron, which means you get this fantastic array of screens. It's not for everybody, and sometimes it can be a little bit fiddly, sometimes it's nicer to have a proper button, but the feeling that you get when you're sat inside this car and just generally using it day to day, you feel like you're in something special, but you also feel like you're in something futuristic. But unlike other cars that are a bit too overly futuristic, Tesla, this car feels like a normal car. It feels like a normal Audi. So you've got that sort of nice sort of cohesiveness between the forward-thinking sort of electronic technology and traditional sort of, maybe not traditional Audi values, but modern Audi values in the way that this thing is designed. You've got a screen right in front of you that if you want to, you can display a full map. You've got Google Maps there. I've got Apple CarPlay in the middle, which I have on all the time. But if you don't have Apple CarPlay, there's Android Auto, and you've got the rest of the Audi MMI system as well. And below that, you've got a nice little screen that controls all of your climate control, and you can add some shortcuts there as well. One of the things I really like about this area here in particular is because there's no gear selector, you've just got this little sort of switch thing here that goes between the different drive modes. It means that you've got this nice little armrest, so when you want to type in something, say you use the sat nav, this becomes a keyboard. You want to type in something, you've got a nice little rest there. I think that's a really nice touch and something that other car manufacturers could learn from. Down here you've got a couple of cup holders. They're a little bit low down for me. You know, this starts here, but the actual cup holder's probably sort of this sort of level, so a bit low down. This car's got a wireless phone charger. Doesn't come as standard. I found out on mine. Mine doesn't have it. Bit of a pain. But it's got a wireless car charger that you can put your phone in. It clips it in and keeps it in place. Got tiny storage back there, but overall it's very sort of modern Audi aesthetics in terms of their interior. And as someone who uses an e-tron every day, this is one of my favourite things about it, is just the interior. Is one of the reasons I picked the car, is because I like being in this interior. And if you even go for the base e-tron like mine, you still get all these screens and you get most of the tech. There's just a few extra bits that you can add on if your wallet will allow.
This particular car is fitted with the optional wing cameras. Being a press car, it's got loads of options ticked, and this is a very expensive option and one that I personally wouldn't go for. See, out on these stalks that are stuck out from the side of the car are little cameras, and they relay a feed back to these screens on the inside of the car. But the screens are mounted in the doors, they're quite low down, so they're not where you would expect to look for a wing mirror. They're just that little bit too low down. They also don't have a wide enough field of view for me. I find that my blind spot on this car is much worse than on the standard car with the standard wing mirrors. So personally for me, I'd forego the range benefits that you get from this, because apparently you get an extra maybe 4 miles at best just by fitting these wing mirrors. I'd personally go for the cheaper option and the better looking option, I think, and just go for the standard wing mirrors.
In the back here of the E Tron Sportback, things are pretty good as well. You've got these lovely leather seats as part of the S-Line trim, but if you go for the basic car, you also get leather seats as standard. Now this seat in front of me is my seating position. I'm 5'10", not particularly tall, not particularly short, and as you can see, I've got loads of knee room. Above me, I've got this little divot on both sides. You get this sort of cutout, which means I've actually got a decent amount of headroom. I can sit up straight. I've got no issues with regards to that. So it's a perfectly pleasant place to spend time. In the centre here, when the car is on, you've got access to the climate controls in the back, which is pretty cool. That's an option, I think, on some of the high spec models, because my particular entry-level model doesn't have it. But overall, very nice place to be. The only thing I would say is if you had to sit in the middle, I wouldn't want to sit there for very long periods of time, because you've got this pull out here with cup holders and storage and various other bits and pieces. This is not all that comfortable. Short journeys only, but for 4 large adults, you could quite easily spend a decent amount of time in here. So let's have a little chat about costs. This particular car, I've got the spec here. So starting price is £79,185. It's a lot of money. The paint is only £750. I think it's well worth it because it's a fantastic colour, even though this is filthy at the moment, because apart from right now, the weather has been absolutely awful this week. You've got sport seats are an extra £1,000. Those virtual door mirrors that I really don't like, £1,250. Wouldn't have that, no. Then there's a tool pack. I'll be honest, I don't know what's in that, but I'm sure there's a whole host of various other bits and pieces. The orange brake calipers that I love so much, 425 quid. Maybe worth it, not sure. Panoramic glass sunroof, it's a great addition, makes the cabin really, really airy. That's nearly 1,500 quid. And there's comfort and sound pack, so you've got the extra high quality stereo, that's 1,800 quid. I must admit, I haven't noticed a huge jump between my base model and this one, so maybe if you're not that much into listening to heavy music all the time, you just listen to podcasts like I do, probably maybe just go for the standard option, up to you. But that makes this whole car, with everything fitted, and I've skipped a few of the options, 89,470. That's a hell of a lot of money, but I know that these days it doesn't matter what the actual cost of the vehicle is, it's the monthlies. My car, for example, I can't afford a £60,000 daily driver. You know, mine was just shy of £60,000 on the road, but my monthly cost was very, very affordable because I got a very good deal. So, you know, if you can get the right deal on this and the right monthly cost for you, then I'm sure it doesn't really matter. People don't buy cars anyway these days. But yeah, but overall, it's a bit pricey. Typical, isn't it, now that I get into the driving portion of the drive, the sun comes out and it's become quite a lovely day. But hey ho, that's again, typical Britain. Now, let's have a little chat about the way this thing drives. Like any electric car, when you first get into it, you put it in drive and you start moving. That is probably one of the most enjoyable bits of driving an electric vehicle, because it's just so quiet. And you almost feel like, you know, when you're in an urban setting, you almost feel like you're sneaking up upon someone. But, you know, it is what it is. The sort of sound deadening and the way this thing drives down the road in terms of the amount of noise it makes, or the lack of the noise that it makes, more to the point, is just incredible with this car. It is probably, of all of the luxury vehicles I've driven and all of the electric vehicles I've driven, this is by far the quietest. Now, this particular one doesn't ride quite as nicely as my E Tron does, but my E Tron's running smaller wheels, and this, being the Sportback, is designed to be a little bit sportier in the way that it drives. But if it's in comfort mode like it is now, it's still really smooth, really easy to drive, really straightforward. So from that point of view, it's just so calming to just waft along the road. But if you do feel like you want to get up on it, if you put it into dynamic mode, you flick the little thing down here into sport, it's properly rapid. You want to overtake someone, it just monsters past people. Now, it's not as fast as some of the other cars in its sort of obvious kind of competitor range, like the Jaguar I-Pace or the Tesla Model X, but it's certainly no slouch, and I personally don't think it needs to be any faster for day-to-day use. But I find myself actually, when I drive this car, most of the time I drive it very slowly, very sedately. I don't try and rag it, because at the end of the day, it's a 2.5 ton SUV. And do you really want to be chucking a 2.5 ton SUV around the countryside? No, not really. And also, you just can't hide that weight. There is, a lot of it here, 2.5 tons. So you can't hide that weight. It does waller around a little bit, but like I said, because this is the Sportback, it is a little bit more composed than the standard car. And I would say if you do want something that is going to be a little bit more enjoyable, then certainly go for this over the standard car. But don't look at this as a B-road blaster performance car. It's not a rival to an RSQ8 or something like that. It's more of a cruiser. You get in it and you waft around, and every now and then you need a bit of power, and you've got all that power at your fingertips. So yeah, from a driving point of view, it's a lovely place to be. And again, the fact that it's got all that sound deadening, all of that refinement, means that more so than any other kind of luxury vehicle in Audi's range, the E-Tron is just a serene place to be if you're driving the car. I mean, in the back, if you're going to be chauffeured, you're going to want an A8. But if you're going to be in the front and you just want to waft around as a daily driver, this is going to be an absolutely lovely place to be on a day-to-day basis. But that does mean I have to come on to the horrible conversation about range. Now, this is actually not all too bad. It is very usable. It's got a big battery. I think it's 95 kilowatt hour battery. I can't remember what the WLTP range is on this particular vehicle, but in my use, I found that I'm getting a usable, in decent weather, just over 200 miles range if I'm not driving it like an idiot. Now, compared that to my 50, which has got a much smaller battery, that's a good 40-50 miles more than I get out of that on a single charge. So if you're looking to do longer journeys and you're not going to be doing just local stuff, then you're going to want the 55 over the 50 no matter what. I'll be honest, I found the 50 a little bit pointless most of the time. For 95% of my journeys, it's absolutely fine, but for those 5%, it's one of the most infuriating cars I've ever owned, just because it just won't get you anywhere. This, on the other hand, you can do some reasonable trips in this. No, it's not going to go as far as a Tesla, but it's not bad. So in summary, should you go for the E-Tron Sportback over the standard car? Well, I think looks-wise, it's certainly grown on me in terms of the way it looks. I liked it when it first arrived, but I thought the standard car, the more boxy shape, suited the sort of SUV style a little bit more. But actually, the more I've lived with this, I think actually the coupe shape is the better looking thing. And everyone I've spoken to thinks hands down it's better looking. So just from an aesthetic point of view, certainly the one to go for out of the two. If you're looking at it from a practicality point of view, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think you really lose anything by going for this. It's still got a massive boot, certainly much bigger than say an A6 saloon in terms of its usable space. There's plenty of space in the back, there's plenty of space up here, obviously exactly the same as an E-Tron, a normal E-Tron up the front here. So I think in summary, I think if you like the way that it looks, and you can justify the extra £9,000 that it costs to get this body style, then I think that the Sportback is certainly the way to go.
Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for plenty more videos coming soon.